I think we can go ahead and get started. Thank you very much for joining this webinar. If you just joined us, we were just waiting a couple of minutes, so glad you were able to make it in. Quick housekeeping note. This webinar is being recorded. An email will be sent around with a link to the recording. If you have any questions, you should have a little question box in your panel where you can enter them. We will have time for Q&A at the end of the session for sure. And I believe that's everything and we're ready to get started. We're going to go through a couple of things today. Here's a quick view of the agenda. We shouldn't end up taking more than 30, 40 minutes. Obviously, welcome to continue the discussion as much as you'd like. This is a topic both Lourdes and I are very, very passionate about. That being said, I'd love to start with introducing ourselves. My name is Shamal Adanki. I am with FireStart, and really my background, more than just talking about FireStart, is very much in the process space. I've been process managers and process engineers in the aerospace field for quite a while, always interested in the intersection between process management and process automation, which leads me here. The legal space is something I'm very interested in. In general, I think it is obviously an industry driven by process. So something. And I just got my mic disconnected. There we go. We should be back right now. And then I would like to introduce Lourdes, if you want to take it away.
Oh, sure. Hello, everyone. You that may not know who I am. Ms. Lourdes Slater. I am the CEO and founder of a consulting firm that really started about a year and a half ago. And the genesis or the idea behind this consulting firm is to approach sort of that gap between law and technology. So we offer consulting legal operations and management, both for law firms and legal departments. But we do so with a specific focus on improving processes. Legal processes are renowned for being very poorly handled or wasteful in many ways. And that is not because we do not know what we're doing, because we're not well educated, highly intelligent individuals, is because the system is wrong. We have not been pursuing law practice with a business model in mind. And I believe there is a lot of gain to be had by looking at what we're doing on a day-to-day basis, both internally in the operations of our law firm or legal department, and also externally with and adding value to the client being either our employer or the client that retains us and pays our fees. The question that I always get asked, because I think the approach we use in the legal process arena or in law firms is why use Lean Six Sigma as sort of like the baseline to review your processes. And I think it's because I realized very early on that about 70 to 80% of our initiatives to innovate in the legal space do not achieve the result. And most of the time is because of human issues. Either the employees don't get it or understand why what we're doing. The management is not on board with innovation, or the mid-level managers are not really engaged into, what it is that the stakeholders may want to accomplish. Successful innovation really it has to three components. It has to be something that is by the people in the organization, people being the key word. It has to be technologically feasible. It has to have market factors pointing to us doing this type of innovation, whatever that may be. I think when we look at all the data that has been collected over the last 10, 15 years, we see that percent of the time, the failure to innovate or the failure to fully implement and adopt any technology, for example, really lies on the lack of human and people involvement and that sort of human market factor being desirable, we wanting to do what we have been asked to do or what the technology can provide. So in addition to that, I think I realized in my sort of years of experience that lawyers and our staff, they spend a lot of time doing non-value added activities. By that I mean we are in reactive mode, we are in unproductive mode, we're sort of putting out fires, and that is something that can be addressed. Those two factors, the human factor and the desirability of doing improvement can be tackled using Lean Six Sigma. So that brings me to my next slide, if I can do that. All right, so in the agenda, I call it a lean law firm. And what is a lean law firm? A lean law firm basically is providing services that are needed when they are needed and with that is what our clients really desire. And if you know anything about lean, and this a webinar about Lean Six Sigma, but if you know anything about lean, you will know that the focus is the client and providing value to the client. So really, the idea of lean is to find a systematic way to increase the flow of our processes, improve the quality of our work, reduce waste, which is defined in, but it could be delays, it could be defects or errors in the documentation that we produce. It could be waiting time, waiting for people, waiting for documents to get back to us, waiting for our superiors to approve work that then needs to move along to different cycles. It's a systematic way to add value. And the last point in the slide that I wanted to talk about is to also improve employee satisfaction. This is sort of a lost of lean that we don't really talk about very much, but I think is very important. Asking our team to do work that is unproductive. Our team doesn't really know what the value of it is. We basically fail to embrace this concept of lean, which is respect for your people. And I think setting up processes that are not wasteful, that flow properly, and do not add those extra types of waste that I briefly mentioned, improve employee satisfaction. So opportunities don't really show up for improvement unless you go through the map what your process is at the beginning. And what we're going to be talking about in a little while is business process management and workflow automation. But automation to me is the second step. The first step is really to improve your process, because basically, if what you are ultimately achieving is making a bad process move faster, you're really not getting far into your desired goal of adding value. And Lean Six Sigma, it provides many tools to improve those processes before you automate them, so that you can achieve your ultimate goal. And for that, we need a deep dive analysis of what the processes are. And we use several Lean Six Sigma tools or process methodologies. There are many tools in the toolkit that we can use to make that process better. We typically start with an engagement of the team, and usually is a cross-functional, to really understand what it is that they do on a day-to-day basis. We typically start by mapping out the current state, and we then, with the input of the team, the people, we map out what the ideal future state of your process should be. Really, all activities can take the form, especially when you're talking about operations, onboarding, offboarding, e-discovery processes, a life cycle that is very sort of capable of being mapped out. When you map out a process into a map, which is simple as it sounds, you figure out what your inputs are, you figure out your process is and what your output is, and then you map out what the delays could be, what the variables are, and you use additional sort of lean to get to the bottom of what it is in that process that you may be able to take out, that you may be able to also automate. So business process management really blends in very perfectly with Lean Six Sigma, because it includes topics we've been talking about: a philosophy or a culture change, the methodology to execute on that philosophy, and the technology. In this slide, we probably list just a few of the tools and the topics that need to be addressed when we go through the exercise of mapping out one of these processes. And I think when we talk about business process management, and we do it in the context of automating workflows, which is what we're talking about here. But before you do that, taking a step back and looking at all of these fundamentals of what your process should be, then you will come up with a very valuable product at the end. I always say that whenever implementing one of these BPM tools or initiatives in a law firm or a legal department, you really need to start with a low-hanging fruit. You need to start with a process that is simple enough to map out and figure out what the issues are with that process, so that you can have a really good success story, and then that sort of triggers interest by the other stakeholders in your company, and you can then expand on your work. My role has always been I'm a litigator by training, and I have been litigating both domestically and abroad for decades. But about 10 years ago, I switched my focus on this sort of process improvement view of the world. I am a black belt in Lean Six Sigma, and I am also a legal project manager. And with those sort of skills under my belt, too, and this is in the law firm side, to not only improve our internal operations within the law firm, but also to provide really added value to the work and services that we had been providing our clients. And the satisfaction that is both seen internally in the law firm within our teams, and the client satisfaction with the work product and the value of the work product has been very noticeable when we started using very defined tools and practices that really stem from Lean Six Sigma. So that's sort of my goal and why I wanted to join into this webinar that is really, going to get more into the weeds of what FireStart can do, to really highlight that there is so much more that needs to be done. The pandemic probably has opened up a lot of opportunities for those of us that want to digitally transform and create a new future for our profession. And the challenge will be to find the avenue can enter these initiatives into our work. And I think always, depending on who's listening to this, I always talk to people about it doesn't matter where you are in the hierarchy of a law firm or department. These are ideas that can be brought about by anyone, and if they're presented the right way, maybe even a case study have it can be had on one of these successful initiatives, then can translate into a lot of other gains. So with that said, I think I'll leave it to Shamal so that he can tell you a little bit about how FireStart can improve some of the work that we do in the legal space.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that information. I think that's really helpful. And just looking at the list of people that have signed in, I think what's really great is the fact that you're here listening to this webinar means you probably recognize that you need something like BPM. You probably have this idea that, hey, we could be doing this better, or maybe our marketing team did a really good job on the copy for the text for the webinar. But either way, the point is you're here because you know you need something, but why? What is it that's off? Whether it's within a law firm or any other industry, the story is the same. And I tell this story over and over again. Pre-pandemic days was at conferences and giving lectures and talking to people. But here's the thing. You need BPM because the processes you have today aren't working as well as they should. And that goes back to a lot of what Lourdes mentioned. There's a lot that could be done better. We're talking about improving the processes. We're not just talking about something that, well, this doesn't work. We need a solution. It's going, well, this kind of works, but we could be doing it much better. And that's why we're here. That's the goal. And today, we're looking specifically at an example of attorney onboarding. Now, everything that we're talking about can apply across processes. There can be support processes like more HR-related topics like this. We have use cases with Neil Gerber Eisenberg, for example, where we're talking about matter management, not matter closure. We have contract management. The specific example is completely up to you. We're talking about a fundamental platform and how to do things. But let's talk about attorney onboarding. You probably have a process in your firm on how you onboard attorneys. Other companies have process on how they onboard their employees. And there's some similarities. There's some there's some specificities when you talk about the legal profession, certainly. But overall, let's say you've got this idea of how it should work. There's a couple of problems here. Most of the communication that's done is sort of done through emails. So you've decided to hire this new attorney, and emails are sent around saying we have this person. Let's just pretend it's Michael Scott who's joining us, and we need to get his information up to date. We need to get some social marketing material out there. We obviously have a bunch of paperwork and forms for him to sign. We need to create email accounts. We need to do all these different tasks, and each department is charged with doing it. Again, done through emails. A lot of back and forth. Hey, have you done this yet? Oh, IT wants to create an email address. Well, we need to put his email address onto his business cards. What's his email address going to be? Emails, back and forth, discussing it until it's finally done. And in that sort of a process, with all this back and forth communication and a lack of a real clear centralized view, um, there's obviously a lot of waste going on. There's very little overall visibility. So when somebody says, well, hey, isn't Michael Scott supposed to join us next week? Is everything done? Do we have his business cards? Does he have an email address? Who really is taking charge of that? Who knows without saying, you know what? I think so. Let me just shoot off an email to HR and find out, where's this portal? Where's this view of it? So you might have a process, but it doesn't mean you've got a well managed process. And that's where BPM comes in, because BPM does a couple of different things here. Starting with process modeling, that's a very, very basic concept of saying, okay, how do we actually do this? Let's draw it out, let's diagram it out, let's put all our details in there. Who does what systems are used, what resources do we need, what documents do we need? And all that's at the modeling layer. One of the most important things is also having governance. A process is a living thing. You should be continuously improving it. And so you've got versions of your process, you've got a history, you've got change management, and so on in your governance. And then you look at your process and say, what can I automate here? What can I connect with? Well, why do I need to send an email to someone at IT and say, here's my person's first name and last name. Can you please create an email address? If I already know the first name and last name, why can't I just go into my Active Directory system and create that account automatically? Little bits of automation making your process much, much more efficient. On the other hand, you can't automate anything. We still, unfortunately, don't have a robot that can package a laptop and a cell phone and bring it down to the person's desk. That's still something done offline. So with BPM, we're not just talking about quick automation, we're talking about managing tasks. When somebody needs to do something, and it doesn't have to be offline or physical, it could be someone needs to actually read a document and give me feedback. It could be that somebody, needs to provide their expertise on a topic. Then the point is, let's send them a task telling them what information we need from them, and at the same time giving them the information that they need. So I'm not going to say, hey, I need someone to, you know what, I need a new computer for this employee. And then have IT come back and say, oh, really? Who's the new employee? And then I go and say, well, his name is such and such. IT comes back. What kind of, well, obviously that's not efficient. So let me send a single task saying, here's everything you need. Here's the employee's information. Here's all this data. Um, can you please do this work on your own time and then tell me when it's done managing the task? Now, what's cool is once you've got all this sort of task management done at this layer, you've got some real valuable insights into your process executions. That's where the intelligence comes. And that's when you can say, how long does it really take me to onboard a new attorney? I wonder how many of you in your firms can answer that question. How long does it really take you to onboard a new attorney from the time you say, let's say you've got an attorney that's ready to start as soon as possible, super eager, and you've got to do your processes and paperwork first. Um, can you get someone onboarded in 2 days, in 2 weeks, in 2 months? What's the realistic time frame and why? So this is where the process intelligence can tell you, look, in the last 6 months, this has been how many hours we've spent onboarding new attorneys. Maybe even looking at trend lines and saying, in the last 6 months, this is how it's changed. Oh, and remember here, we implemented this new procedure, this new policy, and that impacted our onboarding time by this way. That's all the kind of information that you're getting in this process intelligence level, because you've got all this cool data that you can use now. And what do you do with all this cool data? Well, obviously you use it to improve your process. So now you improve your process model, update your process model, and so on. This is the BPM lifecycle. But how does it look for those of you maybe who are coming more from the legal IT, legal technology space? What does this fit? Is this another application that everyone has to learn, another thing added to your entire IT landscape? Not necessarily. The concept of BPM is to create a process driven integration layer that can connect up all your other systems. Whichever industry you're in, this is the same story. You have multiple systems designed to do very specific things. You have a document management system, you have an ERP system, you have a CRM system, and they're all meant to do their own things. And then they try and do their own workflows within them. And there's some level of integration from one to the other, and so on, but that's where you start losing sight of the process. So with BPM, you're saying, look, here's my process. And for a second, let's forget technology. Let's forget systems. Let's pretend I've got post-it notes and a blank wall, and I'm going to stick them on the wall and say, what does my process look like? And now let me start connecting this up and saying, what can I actually do with these other systems once I connect to them? This is the core tenet of BPM. And one of the big ways BPM and process automation, business process automation differs from a lot of other quick fix automation tools. You probably create Excel macros, VBA scripts. There's a lot of things that people do as shortcuts, but they're not necessarily adhering to your process governance. So that being said, let's take a quick look at a example. Now we're talking about attorney onboarding. So if I am a new person and I'm saying, look, I need to track my onboarding process, I might have um, a page that I can go to and say, well, I need to onboard a new attorney. So this is my attorney onboarding form. I just have a simple form to fill up, and I'm just going to reload that I have bookmarked, or I can have that sitting in my intranet or wherever it is, whatever's convenient to your firm. Um, and I'm going to go in there and sure, let's onboard Michael Scott. Why not? I'm going to put my email address in there. That you can see the emails that I get. And let's put a phone number. Now I want to have a LinkedIn page. Let's take mine. If any of you want to take this opportunity to connect with me, that would be awesome. And a start date. Sure, I'm going to start at the end of this month. And just for the fun of it, when we're talking about forms, this is something I'll show you how forms are designed. This everything you're looking at is designed within FireStart. You decide what this looks like. This is our little demo. We've got a FireStart logo. You can do anything you want, complete no-code solutions, putting in sort of values that you want in there. And this is now kicked off the actual process. I don't have to send an email to anybody. I just launched this form. I'm saying I have a new employee being onboarded. Now let's talk about tracking. I want to know who are the attorneys joining our firm? When are they joining the firm? Where are we? I'm writing all this data back right now in this example to a SharePoint list. This can also be written to any other system that you want. And now you can see right there, Michael Scott showing up. Start date, June 30th. Everything is in progress. I have a process that needs to happen to get completed. And these are all the other attorneys that have been onboarded recently. So what is the process? Well, the process is something that I would use in a very standard way. This is a process designed in FireStart. That's what you're looking at right here. FireStart's designed as a platform that's very easy to use. It's all drag and drop, build out a flowchart. You really don't need to be a developer or anything like that to be able to do these kind of this kind of information. So this has all been done. And now we're able to say, okay, where are we on this actual attorney onboarding process? If I had a bunch of tasks that I need a lot of other people to do, and I want them to be able to go in and perform something, how do I get them to do it? Well, the easiest way is through emails. So we can see that emails are now connected to FireStart. So first, as a candidate, I'm going to get a specific email that says, hello, Michael, welcome to the firm. here are all the documents that we need from you because this is the paperwork that needs to be done. You can now fill it in, complete them, and send them back to the HR department. That's how easy it is to make it work. This could be something that's completely automated as well. Obviously, you could have the forms on the web that people fill out. And you can, for example, monitor this HR box. So when the attorney does reply and fills out all the details, then we're able to go in there, automatically extract those documents, save them back wherever you want, and so on. So that's been done. In the meantime, we have a few things we need the other teams to do. So we can look at the emails that they receive. Here's HR. And obviously, I have all these roles. So I'm receiving all the emails, but this would be something that you could define in your organization who receives which tasks. And that's why I've created these little folders down here. Um, Now, this is an example again of a form that someone like HR might receive. That says we've got a new attorney joining the form. Here's the information that you need to know. And here are the things that we need you to do. Now, this is an example where automation isn't everything. This is an example where I'm going to go in and I'm say, okay, I know what I need to do. I have the information available to me, and I can go in there and say, okay, I've created building access. I've created the business cards. I've done all this stuff that I need to do. And then we can also request any specific information. Maybe for the records, we need to know this person's badge number. We need to be able to do something. So I can go in there and type up whatever the person's badge number has been processed as through the system and finish. Now I know that this step of the process is done. All of this is again tracked back into this list. So if I wanted to know where are we right now on the onboarding of Michael Scott, I can see, well, these tasks are complete. We're still waiting for some forms to be uploaded, but the manual tasks have been done. The others are still in progress. This is where we are. So just sort of quickly going through some of the other things, we can see with IT is going to have a slightly different form because we have different ask of them. We want them to specifically go in here, create some accounts, create a phone number, and now we want that information from them. So I'm just going to pretend I've got let's create a phone number in here. And this is where you can create rules. So if I make a mistake in there, it's going to say, nope, the phone number is not valid. So you can create specific rules in these forms on how you want them to look. And that's something that's pretty important when you've got critical information and you want validation in there. Let's put phone number in. And now IT's tasks are completed. Likewise, with marketing, we wanted them to do something specific. So we send them a form with the name and the LinkedIn profile of our candidate saying, hey, can you go create this stuff? So they can go in and they can create whatever they need to do their tasks, and you get the idea. So these are forms. These are pretty standard ways to interface and to interact with users. You can design a form very easily. Everything is designed, again, drag and drop. So a form builder, this is the HR form that you saw. I can make this form bigger. I can make this form wider. I can move things around, decide what I want it to look like. I can just drag and drop elements onto it to build a form. I can have multiple buttons with different actions and so on. So it's pretty powerful, yet pretty easy to use when you're building out your processes. So nothing comes standard. You shouldn't be forced to say, this is how you onboard an employee. Rather, this is a basic model that you can then take and use to your specific needs. So now that this has all been done, HR is going to get another form. And this is an example of where we got these forms back sent by the candidate. And that was saved maybe to a folder automatically. And we want HR to verify them. So I need to go in here and maybe attach them. You can directly attach files, again, without leaving Outlook. So I've got, for example, a folder called Michael Scott's onboarding docs. And this is everything that he sent back to me. And I can go in there and just say, okay, let's select that form, upload, and I'm not going to necessarily bore you by uploading every single form in there. But, I can also have these check marks and verify, okay, did we get everything in? Yes. Oh, no, I didn't. I forgot these. So let me make sure I get these as well, double check that I've got everything that I need, and then finish the task. And again, I've got all this tracking happening in here. So not only can I see that Michael Scott now is completely onboarded, every single step has been done, I also have the information. So if I need his company email address, it's already on here. If I need his company phone number, it's already on here. So now I can use that information wherever I need it without having to go and ask IT for things like that. And if I wanted some of his documents, I can even also have them in here because, well, I only uploaded one, but we would be able to save all of those attachments directly into this SharePoint list, for example. So all the information sits right there and um, stored right there. But BPM is much more about just having these sort of, okay, that's really cool. We have a process, we can manage all of that. A part of it is also how you organize your processes. So, for example, you can start off at a higher level process map. So I can go in there and say, look, here's my law firm. Here are all the functions on my law firm. And obviously, you have your own map and however this looks and however you want to design it. And I can go in there and say, okay, what does human resources do? And within human resources, I can see, look, here are all the processes that HR has. Here's what they do. And again, I can drill that down and say, okay, I want to see my attorney onboarding process. And now I'm seeing that same process that we talked about. But this is the read-only view. This is just for somebody to look at and get, an idea of what's going on, who's doing what. They can provide comments and feedback if they have any notes, and they say, I'm from IT and we always get stuck because we don't have enough information. All right, great. Add your comments here. They're tracked, they're fed back to the process owner and things like that. And that's how you can manage this level of detail within FireStart. Now, not only do you have all the steps of when things were, things being completed and how they look being written back here, you can also view that within FireStart with a lot of detail. So, for example, I can say, let me go to the one that I just completed, and I can look at my legal processes and say, here's one of the iterations of the onboarding that I did. And every step of the way, I can see exactly the timestamps that were done. I can also see when someone completed a task, who did it, and how long it took. So it took me 3 minutes and 36 seconds to complete my HR onboarding tasks. So you have, again, that's the sort of visibility that you have of your process and process executions every single step of the way. And that's really the power of having a BPM system and a BPM platform managing your processes. And that's what I mean by this process driven integration layer that connects up all the other systems. Now, that's a broad overview of what we wanted to show you. There's obviously a lot more detail that we can dig into. There's so much more in there, but I wanted to see if there are any questions out there. We'd be, happy to answer them. Feel free to enter anything into your little question box. There's a lot of things that we can do um,
I,
and see. Yes, go
I
ahead,
have
Lucas.
some thoughts to
Sure.
share with everyone because I think when you and I picked this onboarding process to show, um, the the reason why this popped to my mind was because a very good friend of mine had just been hired by a large law firm in New York City, and the onboarding process when she was describing it to me seemed so outdated that it was almost unbelievable. All of the documentation that was being mailed to her, all of the questions that she had about building passes, about computers, etc., that were not answered without her asking these questions. So even though everything was taken care of, it took a very long time. And to me, using my lean hat, um, it seems so wasteful of time, both of these new employee coming on board that was already coming on board thinking, this place is, not well organized. And also, it shows me that the law firm itself was wasting a valuable time and money paying for inefficient tasks. And I think a lot of the time when we talk about any technology, we think about, well, we don't have the budget for that, et cetera. So I encourage you, both for this and other technologies that you may be considering, to really figure that out, because this implementations, in terms of how much the tool itself costs, they're not that expensive. I think people have this assumption that all of this is going to cost a lot of money. Not only that, but when you implement one of these for a small process, and as you can see from the example that you just saw, you can figure out how long it takes to do some of these steps, and you compare that with what you were doing before, the ROI becomes very apparent. So I think I just wanted to highlight this. And I also wanted to go back to my initial comment that 70% of all of these initiatives, actually I've heard 70 to 90% fail, because the human components haven't been taken care of. Either the people are not on board, the team is not understanding what it is that we're doing. So using a Kaizen or an initial team meeting, cross-functional meeting to create this and have everyone on board, I think is a great way of kicking a project the right way. And also, they fail because the process itself is wrong. And these charts are beautiful, and they are showing, a state of the process. But to get to that, you need to do value stream mapping. You need to do the type of process map where you can see where the delays and the waste are, so that you can cut all of those before you start implementing technology or adopting technology. I always say this, I sound like a broken record, but the steps are clear. First, the people, train them, have them on board, your stakeholders included, full stop. Second, the process, and it can take 1, 2, 3 days of team meetings, et cetera, but making sure that you understand how you do things now and how you can make that better is key before you third get into the technology. So I want to also sort of emphasize that, because that's sort of my issue with a lot of these initiatives, and why when I hear about people that tell me, well, I tried that and it was a disaster and it didn't work. It's so frustrating to me, because I know that the first 2 steps of this process that I'm talking about, the people and the process mapping, were not done properly to begin with. The technology is not going to fix anything unless you understand those 2 issues and address them first.
Thank you, Luther. That's exactly right. And I see that all the time too. One of the things with Firestart that I like to talk to people about is, hey, this is pretty quick to implement. I mean, if you wanted to go from zero to a fully implemented managed process, we're talking about built in days and weeks, not months. And what does get frustrating, we've seen with some clients, where it does end up taking months, not because of the technology, but because when they sat down to say, okay, great, let's automate our process, they started asking around, what is our process? And they got 10 different answers. So they first had to sit down and figure out the process, which is very, very important. You have to do that step first. Get
And
an
the
idea of what your process is before you start going through the quick optimization.
I don't know whether you've heard this before, but the answer to a lot of these questions when I start probing is like, well, we've always done it that way.
Yeah, exactly.
Answer to a process. That is not what we need to hear. We need to understand why. And because we've always done it this way, it is not a good reason.
Yeah, definitely. So one of the questions, and again, feel free to write them into your question box, and if feel free as well. You can always email us any questions that come to your mind later. But there is one of the questions that we have here is for a law firm to go into becoming lean, to actually establish let's say they want to establish lean processes and things like that, do they need any specific certifications to be able to do that, to be a lean law firm?
Um, that is a very good question. And the answer is no. The way that I think about process improvement, and I think I mentioned this before, is a set of tools. And Lean Six Sigma tools certainly provide a whole bunch of those. I think having a facilitator that understands Lean, that can come into your organization and teach the basics. But Lean really is a culture and change, is really change management. And you certainly do not need to be a black belt. There is no way that I will ever use a multiple regression analysis for anything that I do in my work. So understanding what the tools are and how they can be implemented, and maybe at the beginning, some basic training and a facilitator to get you started. Um, that's all you need. These concepts are not complicated. They're actually very simple. They are common sense. It's just that they're not applied systematically to make progress. So that's my answer to that question.
Perfect, thanks. And if you do have a follow-up question to that, feel free to put in the box. Another question we have is regarding Firestart and the tool. Do we have any need for specific skills to be able to implement it? And again, the answer is, well, no. That's really the key, right? If you need to hire a full-time person just to manage your processes, that's a much sort of harder point from a cost standpoint. Firestart's really designed to be very, very user friendly. And you saw me poke around with it a little bit. And it's really just about saying, building out processes, designing what they look like, being able to drag and drop things and how they should look. If you can draw a flow chart, which almost anybody can, then you've really got the ability to build out a process in Firestart. And again, a lot of what Lourdes and I have been saying is, don't worry about the automation. Don't worry about all of that stuff first. You're talking about defining your process. That's all you're trying to do. And once you define, hey, this is what my process looks like, you can say, okay, now I have a better handle on what I need to do. Now, step by step, let's go into one and see, what can I do? Can I assign people to it? What specific things do I need to grow from there? But it's not, you don't need to be a developer. You don't need to be a hardcore techie, anything. You can be an attorney, or you can be the head of HR, and you can build and manage your own processes. And that again, it becomes key. Um, because if you have to constantly go through somebody else to translate the process in your mind into an application or a system, you're losing something in translation. The key point here is, once you've got everything built out, and you might go in here as HR and say, you know what, we really should change what's happening at this step. Or we need to create, in this example, we need to create some escalations when somebody doesn't need to do something. And how do we want to handle those escalations? Then you just make those changes by yourself. It's all about the rapid deployment and, get it out there, quick changes, implement them, and go. That's the real value behind tools such as this. Another question coming in, and this is a very, very common thing we see all the time. So, well, the question has to do with the cloud versus on-premise. Where do we store our processes? And the answer is wherever you want. If you have all your information within your firewalls, all your other applications on your premise, then Firestart is installed on your premise, fully under your control. And that's about it. It can reach out and connect to all your other applications. Now, if you have made that step to start going to the cloud and absorbing, the concept of saying, we'll put some of our applications in the cloud, Firestart works perfectly well in hybrid environments. Just to go back to this sort of a chart, you might have one or two elements still on-prem where your master data is stored, but maybe you've got some things in the cloud. Firestart bridges the two. If everything's in the cloud, then you can have Firestart in the cloud as well. So it's really what's best for your firm, for your IT strategy, and where you are today. But yes, it can be completely on-prem. Your data is completely secure. Okay, that is all the questions we have. Again, if you do come up with any other questions, you can always feel free to contact us. Recording will be sent out shortly as well. Lourdes, is there any parting advice that you would like to leave us with, or parting thoughts? I shouldn't say advice. Any final thoughts that you'd like to leave everybody with?
No, I think I've already sort of mentioned the main ones. I wanted to thank everyone. I know that we all have webinar fatigue. So everyone on the call, on the webinar, thank you for participating. We enjoy talking about this, is what we feel very strongly and passionate about, redesigning the future of the legal profession and how we deliver legal services for our clients to add value, is really a passion of mine. So thank you for listening.
Perfect. On that note, thank you everybody as well from our side. We look forward to having discussions. It's always great to have a little quick, introduction chat, understand what your needs are, what you're thinking about, and see how we can help you through it. So don't hesitate to reach back out. Meanwhile, enjoy the rest of your day and the soon upcoming weekend. Take care, everybody. Bye bye.